Okay, okay. Take your seats. Settle down. Settle down. Welcome to the Road to Concord 101. This class is about all things connected to the path of history leading from Mount Sinai to Lexington Green and the individual liberty and freedom of man. If you're in the wrong place, feel free to get up and go see the registrar's office about dropping this class, preferably before you meet the professor. In the event you do not already know this, your professor is Joe Bakanovic, and he has a bit of a reputation on campus. He is most definitely an acquired taste, but if you can learn to tolerate him, he will make you better at defending your position, whatever it may be. I'm T.A. Charlie. I'm here to help the professor, but more importantly, you. We encourage you to take notes, and if you have questions, feel free to call. If you'd like the number, please email us. You can also post your questions in the comments, and we'll get the professor's attention. Part of my job is to let you know a little bit about your professor. As I said earlier, the professor has that bit of a reputation on campus. Not all of it is good. Let me help explain a little with a story about how I came to be the professor's TA. I was invited to attend one of his classes. My first impression of the professor was that he was an egotistical, narcissistic know-it-all. My intent after only a few minutes of class was never to attend another class with this professor. But after class, Professor Joe came up to me and thanked me for my class participation and told me that my perspective was valuable, and he asked me to keep coming to class. This actually took me back a little. To me, he seemed inconsistent. What was I to do? I decided to continue coming to his classes. As I did, I actually started doing what he does encourage students to do. Check behind him and see if what he is teaching is actually correct. I have done this over and over again, and generally speaking, I found what he teaches to be backed by sound, valid, and rational arguments from reputable sources. When I have challenged him and provided a sound, valid, and rational argument in opposition to his current position, he immediately changed his position and thanked me for correcting him. Why do I tell you all this? Professor Joe is a little rough around the edges, especially in the way he delivers his content. But if you stick with him and listen to what he teaches and then go and check his sources, you will likely find, as I did, he will help you better understand the world around you and help you to think better and hopefully to live better. At least that is our hope. One last note. This class builds on itself. Therefore, it is important to attend class regularly. We will not always have time to go over previously covered material. If you are new, we suggest you watch our older classes. We've created playlists to help you with those things we feel are of special importance. Now, let's get started.
Good morning. It's Tuesday, October 28th, 2025. This is the Road to Concord, and I am your supposedly professor. Name's Joe Bakanovic, somehow or another. I guess it's Hobbesian. I got the name at birth. I had no say in it. You didn't get the reference? See, the class builds on itself. You should have been here the last 4 episodes of this series. Seeing how the class builds on itself, I'm just going to jump right into it today, and I'm going to hope that you've been here for the last 4 classes in this series and that you understand where we've gotten to on our natural rights derived from I think, therefore I am. I want to go into a couple of the differences based on whether or not you pin our theory up to this point on the existence of a creator or not. And because there will be people who find this show that haven't seen this, essentially what we're saying is that if you live in a void and you're thinking, well, you exist. And if you exist and you have control over your mind or your essence, your conscience, whatever that thing is that you think's in your head, whatever you want to call it, nobody else controls it for you, well, then that means you have a natural, meaning as a happenstance of your existence, you have a right, a claim, a just claim to your will. And from that, everything else follows. A claim to your body, to your life, to your labor, to certain other things. We'll expand on that as we go through the day, proceed through the show today. I want to start back with Hobbes. He wrote the book Leviathan, and he named it after the Leviathan in the Bible, which the Leviathan in the Bible is a sea monster, a chaos monster. I'm not sure if Hobbes understood quite what he was doing there, but it's actually apropos. It fits. His version of natural law and natural rights is a little different to what we in the United States would be accustomed. He tends to think that your natural rights are they're bound by the circumstances of your birth, which is why I said, Joe Bakanovic was, it's a circumstance of my birth. So naming your children is a Lockean thing to do. I mean, not Locke, Hobbes. Under Locke, you could change your name. Under Hobbes, you couldn't. What Hobbes basically posited is that whatever system, governmental system you're born into, you have a duty to maintain the system. So if you're born into slavery, you have a duty to maintain that system of slavery, whether you're the slave or whether you're the slave owner. If you're born into like a caste culture, say like India or feudalistic Japan or something like that, well, then sucks to be you if you're on the bottom of the caste. It's good for you if you're on the hierarchy of the caste, et cetera, et cetera. According to law, everything depended, you didn't have rights, you have privileges. And they all reside within the sovereign, whoever the king, the queen, the government, whatever human ruling authority. You have a right maybe to, a privilege to argue if the king gives it to you, but you have no right to necessarily disagree or argue with the king or the queen or whatever. You have no recourse, and you're treated as a collective. The people in general are treated as just one body, one entity by the sovereign, the people. And this case is, like the workers of the world unite. It's a collective thinking. And ultimately, Hobbes rests on might makes right. In this case, the might of the government. So for him, you've surrendered any rights and liberty you might have actually had for security, roughly, to be protected from yourself by the king. Essentially, this is a godless ideology. To the extent that it was grounded in a creator, it was a deist creator. There was a god, watchmaker god, made the universe, wound it up, took off for parts unknown, has nothing to do with it anymore. That's just a fallacy. That's kicking the can, or, well, it's not even kicking the can. It's more or less you're saying something exists in a way that removes it from existence. So you're setting things up so that they go the way you want them to go to begin with. Ultimately, for Hobbes, the king is God. Essentially, that's what it comes down to. Now, under Locke, everything's different. You have a right to your free will. Everything except your will, everything after that except your will belongs to the creator. And the only reason your will is free is because the creator deemed it that way. So God owns everything, but God has given you free will. And therefore, God has lent you your body and life. Now, this creates in Locke's way of looking at things. It's also biblical. This is Romans, the book of Romans, especially Romans 1 and 2. It creates a duty to the creator first. You have to be a good steward of all creation, a steward of ourselves and to others, a duty to ourselves and to others, and to Yahweh, God. In my case, it's Yahweh. this is a higher authority. There is no higher authority other than the king under Hobbes, but under Locke, there is a higher authority. And the founding fathers appealed to that higher authority in the Declaration of Independence, the judge of the universe. So this is an authority outside the control of man. Hobbes, all authority rests within the control of man. Therefore, all authority rests on the use of might with Hobbes. Authority under Locke has different places to be rested. Now, under Hobbes, you can't object if your king does things you don't like. If, ancient times, the king had the right to all virgins on their wedding day. He got to deflower everybody in the kingdom if he so chose. You couldn't say anything about it under Hobbes. Now, under Locke's theory of government, you could object strenuously, even with a musket if you wanted to. So, in a sense, this is where the right of self-defense, that's a natural right. And it remains under Locke's theory of government and social contract, self-governance. And that also includes the defense of others, especially innocents or defenseless peoples. You have an objective standard under Locke, which gives you a moral law, a universal moral law. Under Hobbes, all you're going to have is a system of ethics. And I'm the one who's differentiating ethics being that which is under man's control alone, morality being a universal law that is above and outside of man's control. It applies to everybody. Ethics only applies to that particular sovereign and his people. So under Locke, you have the individual has rights within the collective, within the body of society. The society is not necessarily above the individual. The individual's rights are just as his claim or her claim to their rights is just as good as that of all of society combined. Remember, I showed you that in the chart that I did up for you about rights bubbles. And this is where Locke gets the idea of the social contract. It's a sense, it's an extension of your natural rights. Let me just do this for you real quick. I'll remind you of this. Bring this up. This is rights bubbles. If you have a creator, you have will A, will B, life, body, labor, property through labor, etc. And this is if you have a whole bunch of people and you do not have your system of right and wrong is not pinned to the creator's decree. Then what you have is ethics. And person A, B, C, and D. And if one of them is stronger than the others, then that person ends up being king. And what is right and wrong right here within the center of ethics, that's by force. In our country, this ethics is who can manage to control the law. So we have tyranny through the law. That's what democracy actually is. Because democracy actually, in practice, it never works. It always ends up devolving into tyranny. It's the door to tyranny. If you ever want to find out about that, study the kibbutz movement in Israel, and then here in the United States, the hippies had a commune, was a different version of that, where everybody lived in little self-contained societies where everything was done by perfect democracy. In every case, it devolved into a dictatorship. There was a power, a junta, strong person emerged and ruled over everybody. But if we have a creator, we have morality. So even if person C decides to dominate A, B, and D have a system by which they can team up against person C. And this is all about just claims. This is all about system of justice and righteousness. Under Hobbes, which, that was no God, well, A, B, and D can team up against C, but what's going to end up happening is A, B, or D will take over for C. And there's no objective standard by which to evaluate this and claim something is better or worse than another. But under a system of morality where your ideas of right and wrong come from the creator and your rights are pinned to the creator, you at least have a standard by which you can repair things or at least appeal to them. But the idea that, society's rights are greater than the rights of an individual, The problem here is, under Hobbes, that's an irrelevant conversation. Whatever the king says goes, period, end of story. But under Locke, he would say that you have an infinite, you're one person, I'm one person, and we each have an infinite claim to our natural law, natural rights, et cetera, et cetera. So my claim to my natural rights, is not less than others' claims to their natural rights. It's equal. But without a creator, it's the opposite. Without a creator, they would say, you have one right, I have a right, society has an infinite right. Therefore, the rights of society outweigh mine. The equation without a creator looks like this. With the creator, it looks more like this. My claim to my rights is infinite. Yours to your rights is infinite. Everybody else combined is infinite. So my claim to my natural rights is equal to the claim of every other person in the world. Infinity equals infinity. It gives us all the different natural things we have a natural right to, natural law to. But that's where I want to pick back up in my narration here. Locke, natural rights, natural law under Locke's theory, where there's a creator. What you have has been deeded to you by the creator. You've been given your free will. Now, inherent in the idea of a right to something is the right to use it. If you do not have a right to use it, then you don't really have a right in it. That we covered that in the very first class of this show. That's why you have a right, a just claim to your will. You're the one who exercises it according to your desires, your whims, your reasoning. You're in control of your will. So you have a right to exercise it. The creator gave you that. You want proof of this. The very fact that we're having this conversation, or I'm flapping my gums about it, proves the case. It's self-evident. Now, I've had Calvinists try to tell me you don't have free will, Joe. You just have the appearance of free will. This is just your nature. Really? If I can choose to act outside of this quote unquote nature, then that violates your argument there, Calvinists. And they would say, well, no, your nature just allows you to violate your nature. And that's a contradiction. And from a contradiction, all things follow. So it doesn't hold up. Their logic is fallacious. It doesn't work. I tried to explain that to them. They couldn't see it. They think that if you have free will somehow or another, that means you're on par with God. No, you're not. Unless you can speak the world into existence, no, you're not. Unless you can live forever, resurrect yourself on your own, you are not equal to God. You're not God. But that doesn't mean you don't have free will. You do. Because God wants worship and communion and fellowship. And if you don't have free will, those things are impossible. They're non-meaning. If you are dictated, if I designed my computer program to treat me like my girl, she's my girlfriend, the computer's going to be my girlfriend. These people who fall in love with their AI girlfriends, that's a problem, man, because that's just a program. It's just executing lines of code. It's not alive. It's not real. You're not in relationship with that thing. It's just doing what you told it to do. That ultimately is pitifully sad. So the creator, wishing to have real communion with his creation, gave you free will and the right to exercise it. This is the right to conscience that our founding fathers talked about. That's what the First Amendment is really about, the right to conscience, not so much the right to freedom of religion. If we were to bother reading their words, we would understand that. So in this material world, in order to exercise your will, you're going to need a body. And in order to use your body, you're going to have a life. The life is what animates your body. The body is the vehicle by which you exercise your will. Now, you have a right to use them, but the creator ultimately retains right over your life and body. They came from the creator. The creator can call them back. He decided he would not call your will. He's going to leave you to do that. But your body and your life are on loan from the creator. So you need to remember that and use them accordingly and treat them accordingly. Not only yours, but others as well. This is where morality comes from. If this was ethics, well, then you're just born into this world by some choice of happenstance, and the sovereign can do with you as he wills because he existed before you. So hence, if he wants to deflower every wife on their their wedding night, then he gets to do that because he's the sovereign, because he has the power. He commands the power. That's Locke. Well, there's no right there. There's no rights whatsoever. There's no just claim to anything under Locke.
Quit disparaging Locke.
Why? Oh, Locke. Hobbes.
You've done that a couple times. I just had to jump in there.
I'm an idiot. Under Hobbes.
Folks, Joe has problems with names. We need to give them numbers.
Yeah, we need to give them numbers. 7 is Ray Comfort. Sometimes I think I shouldn't be doing any of this. I'm an idiot. I'm more worried about the idea, folks, than I am about the names. I apologize. Thank you, Charlie. I appreciate that. You have a right to your body. You have a right to your life. That gives you a right to your labor. The use of your body is labor. And you have a right to property, that property which is necessary to sustain your body and life, movable property. You acquire this right to the property through the use of your labor. Either you gather something that was scattered, gather berries or nuts, or you build something out of different pieces of material that you find laying around, unclaimed materials. Like in our example, previous shows, you make a hoe out of a big seashell, some vines and a stick, and you use it to cultivate the ground so you can grow pineapples. Then that gives you a right to that cultivated ground so long as you're still cultivating and tending it, which then gives you a right to the crop that you're growing because it was a product of your labor. You also have a right to association, to decide who you want to associate with. And you have a right to enter into contracts, agreements with other individuals. But there are limitations on your right to contract. And that's part of where our society, our world has problems. The social contract, or the essence of society, the source of good government, that's the social contract. It flows from the natural right to associate and contract, to make agreements with each other. All free market commerce flows from the right to contract. So when you say I've got to provide minimum wage, you're violating the right to contract. If I am willing to work for $1 an hour, but you're telling my employer he must pay me $3 an hour, you have trampled mine and my employer's right to independently negotiate and contract with each other. This is part of the problem we have in our society, is we no longer understand the ideal. And that's basically what we're doing here. The whole purpose of this series of shows has been to derive from I think, therefore I am, to derive an objective ideal, the target that we're going to shoot for, through reason guided by observation. And reason guided by observation is an operative definition for wisdom. Reason alone is not wisdom. And the reason I say that, the explanation for that statement, is that reason can argue both sides of any argument equally, can be just as sound, valid, and rational. This was proven to me in basic logic class, Logic 101, when I was in philosophy school. Our teacher, I wrote it down. I lost my notebook along the way, somewhere along the line. I wish I could find it. I wish I still had it, but it was 4-line argument. It's just 4 lines, proved that God did not exist. And he was an atheist, and he was proud of the argument. But then he erased 2 words and he switched them. That's all he did. He moved them from one line to the other, and he moved the other line back, just 2 words to the different lines. And all of a sudden, he proved that God does exist. Both arguments were sound, valid, and rational. So how do you choose one over the other? That's Hobbes. The only way to win that debate is by fisticuffs. Might makes right. Locke would come along and say that proves that logic has limitations. And yet we can still reason through wisdom. Logic guided by experience, observation. Well, wisdom, the scriptures will tell you that the fear of the Creator is the beginning of wisdom. So through observation, you start understanding that, these things seem to all operate according to a set standard in the world. Happens the same way every time. And now you're on to the beginning of science. So it's no coincidence that science, as we understand it today, was derived from Christians. Science, the way we think of it, the scientific method did not exist before Christians. Deltros One's comment on the board says, careful what the illegals are willing to work for pennies on the dollar, and by telling employers they can hire them, they're trampling on their rights. No, they're not. What did you miss there, Deltros? Illegals. They do not have a right to enter into this country illegally, because you and I have defined this country according to our social contract. We said if other outsiders want to be part of it, there's a process to go through, and they skipped that process. Therefore, I do not have a right to contract with that illegal individual who's not part of our society per my prior agreement. Yes, ma'am.
Just throwing out there, I'm pretty sure he's being sarcastic here.
Well, just in case he wasn't, I figured I'd address it.
Good.
Because there
Carry
are
on.
people who would think that way. And that's the problem.
Oh, yeah.
We have people who would think that way. And that brings us to if you have a right to your body, your life, et cetera, but you don't have a right to seek food. I mean, to food. You have a right to seek it. You don't have a right to it. You have a right to try to obtain food, clothing, shelter. You don't have a right to obtain them. You have a right to seek association with other individuals, but you don't have a right to that association. The most obvious thing here would be you have a right to seek a life partner, a spouse. But that doesn't mean you have a right to one. Nobody's going to give you one. Just being born doesn't mean somebody has to give you a husband or a wife. You have a right to seek healing, but that doesn't mean you have a right to be healed. When we claim we have a right to food or clothing or shelter or association or healing, set aside anything that you have to do with the claim you're putting on the labor of another person. Set that aside. Under Hobbes, he could maybe say, well, the king should provide these things, but doesn't have to. It's all for your own good. Maybe you're fat. The king's decided you shouldn't have that much to eat, Joe. No more donuts for you, Joe. Hobbes would have no problem with that. Locke would say Joe's got the freedom to eat himself into oblivion so long as he doesn't turn around and tell society to pay for the following health problems that he's created for himself. So those are two different systems. I have a right to seek these things, but set other people aside. If I claim that I have a right to food, a right to clothing, a right to shelter, a right to association, and a right to healing, I just placed a claim not on people. I placed a claim on the fundamental order of the universe. And by transitive property, I placed a claim on the creator of that system. And I'm now saying I have a right to demand from the creator. No, you don't. And that's the whole point. No, you don't. Nor do you have a right to demand from his other creations. Now, the social contract stems from our right of association and our right to contract. But the thing is, we cannot grant to others that which we do not possess ourselves. You can't give away something you don't possess, which means that you cannot create a system, a society, or a government that is somehow greater than the sum of the individuals in it. Government does not become above the people. In fact, it stays below the people, because the people agree to form a government for their own commonwealth, and they cannot give that government a right to do something they do not have a natural right to do themselves. Neither can the government claim it without becoming tyrannical. Now, it doesn't have a just claim to do that. So when the government exempts itself, that's the government breaking the natural law and the natural contract. You and I cannot give the government a right to murder. We don't have a right to murder, so you cannot give the government the right to murder. What you can say is, so long as government operates within the confines of our agreement, we will give it the authority to exercise the right of self-defense on our behalf. So they will come and punish people rather than ourselves. However, when the court comes along and rules that the police have no duty to protect you. They just violated the natural law, the covenant, the social contract that we formed with them. Ergo, they are no longer the court, and the police are no longer police. And if our country understood this, we might fix some of our problems. But we have embraced Hobbes. Oh, well, the court said it. Nothing we can do about it but elect more R's or D's to change it our way. That's where we've gotten into our problems, folks, because we've forgot the target we're shooting at. Government cannot be exempt from the natural constraint, the constraints of natural law. It's nothing more than a conglomeration of people working for each other. Got the bottom of the hour break. When we come back, we'll pick up from here and we'll continue. And I will endeavor to keep Hobbes and Locke separate. We'll see you in 3 minutes. I was just thinking during the break that it breaks my heart that more people don't. If I was doing a show bashing on Democrats, it'd be a lot more popular than this one. But what does bashing on Democrats teach you about how to evaluate our government and how it's operating? Or the president? He's operating outside of the law in a lot of ways. But I guess because some people, he's on their team, Team MAGA, that's okay. And Team MAGA hates the Trump derangement syndrome people. Well, to me, I'm looking at things through Locke's filter, through natural law, natural rights, the way Locke sees them and explain them. And I see that it's a pox on both their houses. TDS, Trump derangement syndrome, and Cheeto Jesus cult, the MAGA Cheeto Jesus cult, they're just two wings of the same bird. Team R versus Team D. Both of them are irrational. Both of them are Hobbesian. Both of them want their team to be the dictator. Period. End of story. But this isn't a popular thing I'm doing here. No, people don't care about this anymore. In the founding fathers' time, they did, but we're not there anymore. Show you something here real quick, if you don't mind. Share this. I'm not making these things up. This is from a slideshow from online course about Hobbes' Locke. It says, why do we have government? According to Hobbes, it's to protect us from ourselves. Well, if you're here to be protected from yourself, if the king's supposed to do that, humans can't protect them from themselves. What makes you think that a human king or queen can protect the people from themselves? There's just got all the fallibilities. See, under Hobbes, the sovereign is a god. That's the functional definition of a god, of a tyrannical, immoral god. And that's how I can evaluate which creator would give you Locke. If you will look at all the religions in the world, there's only one creator, one God, one Elohim that is going to give you Locke. And that's the God of the Bible, of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Now, there are different apostasies that appeal to his name, but he's the only one who has said, I'll let you have your will. Allah is the opposite of that. Allah is that you will do exactly what I tell you. Allah is firmly in Hobbes's camp. So is every other creator, supposed creator, false god. That's the easiest way right there to evaluate which is the true creator, because the true creator would love you. And a true creator who loves you would not trample on your free will. And Yahweh doesn't. Comment on the board here from Natasha says, didn't Locke look to Romans 1 and 2 for natural rights, or am I getting that mixed up? No, Locke did. Locke wrote his treatise of natural law. He got it from Romans. His words, not mine. So why government? Hobbes to protect us from ourselves, Locke to protect our natural rights, where those natural rights are derived from the creator. According to Hobbes, where does sovereignty reside? The monarch, the ruler, the government, the king, the queen, the whatever. According to Locke, it's the people. Now, be careful. He's not talking about democracy. He's saying that is the collective, the collective of the natural right to associate and contract with each other. He's talking about it's a mutually agreed upon arrangement that the people come to. That's where you get the source. In other words, the Constitution, the Declaration and the Constitution is where you get that from. According to Hobbes, can government's power be limited? No. He's a god. The king's a god. According to Locke, oh, heck yeah, you can limit the power of government. According to Hobbes, is there a right of revolution? No. According to Locke, oh, heck yes, there is. This is a very different ideology. The bulk of the world has always lived under Hobbesian thinking. Lockean thinking is very rare, folks. Now, let me expand on where we were at before the break. Let's say that we align ourselves with a system of laws, man-made laws, that are in alignment with Locke's natural law. What type of government do you have? Well, it's a republic, Joe. No. A republic does not guarantee freedom. The Republic of China, Republic of Korea. A republic, the way the world thinks of republic now, just means you elect representatives. So you are electing dictators. That's Wilson's view of the president, an elected dictator. That's a republic. You elected somebody to represent you. Now, the founding fathers used the term republic, but they understood it to be a commonwealth. What's the difference between a commonwealth and a republic? Well, at our founding, nothing. But then these people cared about such things as we're discussing today. We don't. No wonder we're in such trouble. We're ignorant. But you know what? We're more advanced than the founding fathers because we can play on cell phones and talk to people visually across the world. So that means we're smarter than they are. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Not even in the slightest bit. Just because you can punch the number into an equation that you memorize doesn't mean you're smarter than the person who can derive the formula that they forgot. Sit there and derive it right there on their paper and then punch that person's smarter than you are. Not the one who knows how to use the calculator, but the one that can do the math in their head. So what's a commonwealth? That's a system that operates according to natural law, the way Locke sees it. And it's designed to protect the natural rights of every citizen equally. So under a republic, you can still have a dictatorship where nobody's free, a modern day republic. But under a commonwealth, well, you can't have anti-discrimination laws. Well, Joe, that would be a dictatorship. No, it wouldn't. You cannot have an anti-discrimination law because that would be an anti-right of association law. So if I don't want to rent my house to a Polak, and you're going to write a law that says you have to rent to everybody, I just trampled on my right of association. Or you did, or whoever wrote the law did. Well, Joe, that creates discrimination. Yes. Yes. You have a natural right to be discriminate. Yes. That's Hobbesian to tell me I don't. You have trampled my right of conscience. Welfare. That's theft. You're making somebody's labor, you're taking the labor of another individual and giving it to somebody who didn't labor. It's not charity. It's not compassion. It's defined as theft because you have forced me to do something against. Well, Joe, you entered in an agreement where it said that if our representatives elected, oh, no. That wasn't my representative. The minute they voted for something that goes against the natural law that created our commonwealth, they ceased to be my representative. They should be removed from office. They violated their oath to uphold the principles and ideals of the social contract. They should be removed. And if we collectively, individually cared about these things as much as we claim to, we would see to it that they got removed. We would quit working. We would do nothing until that person was removed from their position. Why? Because we would have a duty to each other, to society, to ourselves, to our family, to see to it that that was done, to preserve the social contract. Now, DEI and affirmative action, that's racism. Well, Joe, that's got to be legal. You said that I can be racist. No, I didn't say that. I said you can be bigoted. You can be a bigot. You can discriminate. I've previously defined racism as when the state does it. The state has no right of conscience. That's something that belongs to a natural person, a free will. The state doesn't have a free will. The state is just a system. It's just an organization. It's no different than any other corporation or entity, artificial entity that we create to operate for us. It has no conscience. It's not alive. Wilson's wrong. Society is not a single living being. So if you're going to try to create a past wrong, first of all, you're punishing the present for the crimes of the past. That's a violation of natural law because you're punishing those who did not commit the crime. And you're rewarding those who were not injured. So all of this would be a violation of natural law under a commonwealth. You see, under a commonwealth, you have to protect the natural rights of every individual equally. And you cannot pass a law that does not do that. If you do, you violate. Well, Joe, then there wouldn't be a whole lot of laws. Ding, 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 ding. There you go. Now you're getting it. How about property? Property in your land, your ideas, even your wealth. Well, that's a natural right, Joe. No, it isn't. Those things do not exist outside of a society. And the society is either created according to the rules of Hobbes or the rules of Locke. Now, if we're in a commonwealth, you have a right to property because society has gotten together and said collectively, as long as you are paying taxes to help support this system and operating within the confines of the social contract, we will allow you to treat certain things as personal property. We will all agree to conduct ourselves as though that were your personal property, so long as you're alive, paying your taxes and operating within the confines of the social contract. As soon as you go outside that social contract, we have the right to change that for you, not to everybody else who's still abiding by the agreement. So when a corporation starts using its money to favor one party over another, acting as though they're a super voter because they have more money than an individual might have, they just operated outside of a commonwealth principle, because that corporation is favoring one political agenda over all others at the expense of the others. See, the others are having to pay for the system that allows that corporation to exist. So by default, you're trampling their right of association and their free will. So you have a right to alter or amend that corporation's existence. This is why a corporation shouldn't exist. It's an artificial entity. Now, let's say you're rich. You do realize that great wealth, that is a product of society, right? You know this, right? How many people get really, really rich without a society? You can't. It's not possible. You might go dig up a whole bunch of gold, but I'm not talking about, you have to be able to carry that money. Okay, how much gold can you carry and personally protect? Your ability to amass wealth like the Rockefellers or like Soros or Gates, that depends entirely on society. And as soon as you start using it to the detriment of society, like Soros is doing, waging war on the United States of America with the money that society has allowed him to create, you don't find that man. You just take everything he owns and you stick him outside of society. He no longer is entitled to the benefits of that society. He has so violated the contract by waging war on it. In fact, society would be entitled to terminate him as a threat to society. That's natural defense. We don't look at it that way. And you got the right defending this. The political right in this country thinks that the things I just said are communist. No, they're not. They're the Commonwealth. If it's created by society, society retains control over it. There are things that can be created by society within the confines of natural law and natural rights that do not violate the natural law and natural rights, so long as we operate within the confines of that construction. I will allow you to run a corporation, so long as that corporation remains neutral to everybody in every political way. Do not trample on the rights of another person. Say, well, then you have to sell the cake to... No, I don't have to sell the cake to the gay couple. You have a right to seek the cake. You do not have a right to the cake. So you cannot trample my right to not sell to you in favor of your demand on my labor. You're claiming a right you do not have. But if the cake company gets so big that it funds Joe Schmuckatelli to come in here and turn the country, go run for mayor and turn the country into, I don't know, the sovereign nation of Uganda. No, I don't want to pick on anybody. What was that lemur's name in Madagascar? The king lemur. Okay. So I've got a cake company that's making hundreds of billions of dollars, and I go fund the Madagascar king lemur to take over my city and create a government within the country. You got every right in the world now to come take away my business. Just take it all away. Not fine me. Take it away. Put me in jail because I just used that which you permitted me to have against you to try and destroy you. I attacked the very system that allowed me to acquire the means to attack the system. That's a violation of the Commonwealth. It's very simple when you understand the ideal. So this is why society can't create a welfare or slavery state. This is why you cannot have free health care. That's a form of slavery. You can't have anti-hate laws because that's a violation of conscience. You have a duty under Locke's system, under a commonwealth. You have a duty to God first, the creator first. Then you have a duty to others, to society. Then you have a duty to your family, and then you have a duty to self. You have a duty not to trample on those people's natural rights, their will and their rights. You also have a duty to provide. You have to provide for the sustenance, to sustain the system that's providing all of this for you, that's helping you in cooperation. So you have a duty to pay taxes. Everybody, right down to the poorest person in the country, should be paying an equal tax. Equal, not proportionate according to the amount of money you have, although that is possible if you pay an equal percentage of what you make. But if you're going to not work, then you still have a duty to work so long enough to provide something into the system. Otherwise, you have no claim against the system. If you live outside the system, do not claim its protection, do not claim its benefits, do not claim its privileges, do not claim its protection, because you live outside of it. If you do not contribute your club, your fair share to the society, then you have no claim to what it provides in return. You also have a duty to provide to those that you have. Let's say you get married. You willingly entered into an association. You now have a duty to provide for your spouse. Let's say y'all have children, or better yet, you get pregnant. You now have a duty to the unborn. You shall not commit murder. Well, I didn't want a baby. You should not have had sex. Well, that's why I got married. Then you should have taken precautions. You have duties, and duties will give you responsibility. I'm sorry, but anybody like Ayn Rand who wants to reason this away, that's ethics. Ethics can allow slavery. Ethics can even allow rape. Under Sharia law, rape is legal. Outside of Islam, they're free to rape anybody they want. That's not rape. It's not even murder. They can kill whoever they want if you're not a Muslim. It's not murder. Well, that's legal, so it's ethical. Is it moral? I would say no. But under a Hobbesian system, I have no objective standard by which to say no. Under Locke's, I do. Well, Joe, they're appealing to Allah. I just told you we can compare the two different gods to see which one is truly God. Any God who's going to say, I like this one, but not that one. I created that one. I love him. I created that one. I hate that one. You can go ahead and murder that. That's not a God. It's not a God of objectivity. That's not a God of justice. That's not a God of law. It's a God of whim. That's a humanitarian type God, a God who's been humanized. So I'll take the God of the Bible. Well, Joe, the God of the Bible killed people. No. Not without just cause. You just don't understand what's going on in the scriptures. That was a holy war. There was actually a wrong being corrected there. Every time. So you have a family now. Now you have an obligation to provide for your children as best you can. There is no claim against society or against another individual without a reciprocal responsibility. I can't even claim the right to exercise my free will without a reciprocal responsibility to the Creator, a duty to the Creator. Free will creates responsibility and duty, and ultimate accountability to the source of your rights. Under Hobbes, that's man. Well, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be accountable to men, not even to myself in that regard. But if your accountability is to a creator, well, now we have something by which we can objectively evaluate your creator. We've already created a system using logic and guided by observation and wisdom. Now all I got to do is find a creator that upholds and espouses that system. because the fact that I reasoned through that system by looking at the universe in which I live, that tells me the character of the God that created it. That's what science was all about. Science, as we understand it today, was created by Christians trying to better understand the character and nature of Yahweh. Do your history. That's what gave us the scientific method. And when you do that, you're going to come away with the system that we reason through from I think, therefore I am, look at the universe the way it exists, reason through it. You're going to come up with Yahweh. No other God meets the criteria. No other God created a system that matches the world in which we live. But the problem we have in our society today is we've forgotten that the liberty to do a thing does not mean that we're free from the consequences of that thing. We don't want the consequences. So what we're doing is, not me, God. It's that woman you gave me. Not me, God. It was the snake. He tricked me. Yes, in both cases, you, Adam. You, Eve. You. Both of you knew better. In Adam's case, he's doubly responsible. He knew not to eat the fruit, but he also knew that he was in a position to make sure his wife knew better. And he didn't do it. This is natural law, as I understand it. This is natural law as Locke understood it. This is natural law as the founding fathers adopted it. This is the system by which our government was created, the theological, philosophical, political theory, the ideal, the target by which the Declaration and Constitution were framed. And it comes straight out of the book of Romans, and Romans comes straight out of the Old Testament. It just expanded on it. The Constitution is not Old Covenant. It's not Book of Moses, because that was collectivist in theory. The Constitution is New Covenant, individualistic. It's the ultimate fulfillment of our liberty. It's back to the days of Noah, where everybody does what they think is right. It's just that none of us will bend our knee to the objective standard of what is right and wrong. So we're being tested, sifted, and we're coming up wanting. Because we're all for right and wrong according to how we see it. But we don't want to go with Locke. We don't want to admit that there is a creator who we are bound to. We want to go with Hobbes. We want to be our own God. Hence, my view of the man of lawlessness of 2 Thessalonians 2. It's how I got there. Because it fits. The puzzle piece fits. And by the way, if you're still wanting to hold to no, that means it's the Antichrist. My view fits both. Yours only fits one. When I have an explanation that fits all possibilities, I go with that one. Occam's razor. Simplest solution. Charlie, comments, objections, questions?
No, other than you keeping confusing my man Locke there.
Did I do that again?
No, I didn't catch it again. You only did it,
Okay,
I think, twice, but I was just
Well, that's
jumping
a
in there.
heresy that I deserve. That's a heresy that I deserve to be
Yeah,
drawn and quartered over right there, because I'm very fond of Locke. I am very hostile toward Hobbes, and I will admit my bias. I will admit my bias there. Locke has done great service to the human species, and Hobbes has done great harm.
Yeah.
So naturally, we go with Hobbes as a species, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I just saw that the Democrats are now publishing on their website the movements of ICE to help the immigrants avoid them.
Folks, if you're going to be part of a system that has laws, and then you undermine those laws, well, hold on. even now in our system, in our Hobbesian system, this is a Hobbesian system.
We do have laws.
Okay.
We
And you're
just
going to
ignore
undermine
them.
those laws to the detriment of the nation, of the people who were elected. That's called sedition.
I agree. That's why I brought it up. I
And
just saw
as
that
soon as you
thing on
have
Facebook, and I'm like,
a military
geez.
force behind it, like Antifa, even though it's paramilitary,
yeah.
it's military, that's an insurrection.
Yes, it is.
Now, if you're MAGA, your man now has a constitutional duty to declare this an insurrection and put it down, not through the DOJ, but through the DOD. Where is he?
No,
Where is
he's
he?
in Japan. Last I knew.
I swore an oath to the Constitution, and my oath clearly tells me that these are domestic enemies.
Yep. All enemies, foreign and domestic.
And they are not to be dealt with through the laws, the legal system with DAs and warrant. You are to deal with an insurrection as combatants.
They're combatants.
You don't arrest them, you shoot them.
Yes.
You stack them in the streets and you go after the people who fund them. You don't arrest them either. You shoot them as well.
Yeah, yeah.
You drop bombs on them. You burn their houses down.
Yep.
You confiscate everything they own. You take their land back. We're not doing it. Don't tell me that Trump is a savior of anything. He's setting a stage for a greater atrocity when the pendulum swings back the other way.
Yeah. When that pendulum swings back, Katie, bar the door.
These people will seize it. The left will seize it.
Yes. We will never see another, real election in this country if we can even pull one more out. Yeah, I hear you. Love this show, Joe. Again. But this is really, doing this show, I really appreciated this one because it does show how you can get there. Yes, we still have our biblical stint, but we really got there without really referring to the Bible, just through logic and reason and observation.
You got to the Bible. You got to the Bible through wisdom.
Yes, right, exactly.
Which is exactly what Solomon would tell you would end up with. It's exactly what Job did.
Yeah. If you were watching,
Aaron Spike, so we're screwed.
Yeah, if you were watching on Shabbat, that's what my message was about last Shabbat.
Well,
be prepared.
I know that you're already inclined toward the Bible. You're going to be charitable to me. What I'd like to know is those who watch the 5 shows in this series, you don't have to agree, but did you at least see my argument?
Right.
And do you not understand how strong it is, logically, how strong this argument is? I know because I presented this to my little atheist certified genius logic professor, and he didn't like it because he couldn't break it. Right. He wouldn't agree with it, which made him irrational, which meant he wasn't, by his definition, a person, which meant I could kill him. We became friends after that.
Yeah.
And I never, ever failed to periodically remind him that he was just an intelligent monkey. Not a person.
You would. Oh, that's funny. Oh.
It was said in jest. But tomorrow we're going to be going over, we're still working on our series on the New Covenant. So we're going to talk about covenant theory and dispensationalism because it's something I think we need to get under our belt before we move on to covenants. Tuesday, we're doing AI Elm Street. Oh boy, if you think you've seen horror movies, you ain't seen nothing yet. I'll explain it all Thursday. Thursday will be a scary day. And I do mean, if you pay attention to what I'm going to tell you Thursday, and this is a warning, this is straight up. Some of you may want to skip the show Thursday. If you pay attention to what I'm going to be discussing Thursday and you take it and you think out its logical conclusions, you're probably going to be like me. I would much rather go storm the beach into a nuclear holocaust than face what I know is coming. And I do mean I would much rather storm the beaches on a hostile country in the middle of a nuclear war. I would, than face what's coming. So we'll discuss that Thursday. I've promised. This is one of those times where if you're thinking, I'm gonna scare the mother-loving bejeebers out of you, because I'm gonna let you see what nobody else is talking about. And the few that are talking about it are using polite language. I'm not gonna curse. I'm just gonna rip the mask off of the monster. I'm not going to talk about Jason with his hockey mask on. We're going to pull it off and see the face of the undead. And then Friday, we'll do the next 2 chapters in our book study. I think it's 23 and 24, but it is up on your homework assignment on wewhoarelost.com. Just click on the homework assignment and you'll find it. All right, that's it. We're done for the day. We're going to wrap it. We love you. We thank each and every one of you for being here. Why you're here, I don't know. You definitely have intestinal fortitude. That, or you've stayed around long enough that I've become an acquired taste. So you are now drinking wasabi black coffee with a twist of habanero sauce. We haven't used that one in a while. Anyway, we thank you for being here. If you think the show is of any value to anybody else, please share it. This is entirely supported by you, by your donations, by your likes, by you ringing the bell, by your comments, by everything you do to help the logarithms get this to other people. I do know as a fact this show is being throttled. That's all right. I don't care. It'll find its way to the people who will appreciate it because of you. And if we're not for them, I hope and pray sincerely that they'll find somebody else that will feed them in a profitable way somewhere else. If not me, then by all means, another servant of the kingdom. I don't mind. Doesn't have to be me. Just a servant. So until we see each other again, y'all stay safe, take care, and bye-bye.